If you are sitting in Manhattan right now, look out the window. If the lights are still on, count your blessings. Because what just occurred in a control room 500 miles north of you has changed the fundamental physics of your life. It started at exactly 9:02 a.m. this morning. On the trading floor of the New York Mercantile Exchange, traders were expecting a normal Tuesday. They were drinking coffee. They were watching the bond yields. They were worried about inflation numbers. Then a single ticker symbol started flashing red. The day-ahead price for electricity delivery into Zone J, that's New York City, didn't just tick up. It didn't just spike. It teleported. In 30 seconds, the price of 1 megawatt-hour of electricity went from $45 to $400, then $800, then $2,000. Traders started screaming. The algorithms that manage the power grid for the entire eastern seaboard triggered an automatic emergency load shed warning. That is technical speak for we are running out of juice. Elevators in Boston's skyscrapers slowed down to conserve power. Aluminum smelters in upstate New York received automated texts telling them to shut down their furnaces immediately or face bankruptcy-level fines. The subway system in Brooklyn went into low-power mode, stranding 3 trains between stations. Panic. Pure, unadulterated panic. People looked at the weather. It wasn't snowing. It wasn't a heat wave. It wasn't a hurricane. The sky was clear. So, what happened at 900 a.m. sharp? Prime Minister Mark Carney didn't fire a missile. He didn't send troops to the border. He simply instructed Hydro-Québec, the massive state-owned battery of the North, to update its pricing model. For 50 years, America has treated Canadian power like an infinite cheap resource. We treated it like tap water. We thought it would always be there. Today, Mark Carney turned off the tap. This is the story of the biggest geopolitical gamble in North American history. This is the story of how Donald Trump tried to bully a polite neighbor and woke up to find his own country held hostage in the dark. You are watching history shift, and the lights are flickering. To understand why your electric bill just became a mortgage payment, we have to rewind exactly 72 hours. We have to go back to the inciting incident because this didn't happen in a vacuum. This was a response, a calculated lethal response. 3 days ago, Donald Trump stood at a rally in Pennsylvania. You probably saw the clip. He was red-faced, he was energized, he was talking about America first. He started talking about the northern border. He told the crowd that Canada was cheating us. He said they were smuggling Chinese steel into our markets. He used words like parasite and freeloader. But then he went off script, and this is the moment that changed everything. He looked right into the camera and said, if Mark Carney doesn't sign the new surrender terms on the USMCA trade deal by Friday, I am slapping a 100% tariff on every single electron coming out of Canada. We don't need their power. We have the best power. We have coal. We have gas. We don't need them. The crowd cheered. The pundits on Fox News laughed. They said it was just Trump being Trump, just leverage. But in Ottawa, nobody was laughing. In the Privy Council office, the nerve centre of the Canadian government, Mark Carney, was watching that feed. Carney isn't a politician like Trump. He's an economist. He ran the Bank of England. He ran the Bank of Canada. He understands risk. He understands leverage. And most importantly, he knows exactly how the American power grid is wired. He knows something Trump apparently forgot. You can't tariff physics. When Trump threatened to tax the electricity, he broke a 50-year-old unwritten rule of North American security. Energy flows freely. The moment Trump said those words, he gave Carney the opening he had been waiting for. For the last 48 hours, the Canadian government went silent. No angry tweets, no press releases. The American media thought Carney was terrified. They thought he was scrambling to find a way to apologize. CNN ran a headline, "Carney cornered. Will Canada fold?" They were wrong. Carney wasn't folding. He was preparing the paperwork. He was invoking a little-known clause in the North American energy treaties called the sovereignty exception. It basically says, if a nation's security is threatened, it can prioritize its own domestic energy needs over exports. Trump's threat of a 100% tariff was the legal trigger Carney needed. He didn't block the power. That would be an act of war. Instead, he did something much smarter. He applied a fair market adjustment. He said, If the US president believes Canadian power is a security threat, we must price it accordingly to cover the risk. So that 4,000% price spike you are seeing on the screen, that isn't a blockade. That is just the new price of doing business with a hostile neighbor. Trump wanted a trade war. Carney just nuked the battlefield. Now I need you to understand the weapon itself, because when you hear Canadian hydro, you might think of a nice little dam and a beaver pond. You need to erase that image from your mind. We are talking about the Manacawagan Reservoir. We are talking about the James Bay Project. These are engineering marvels that are visible from space. They are terrorist dams that hold back the power of entire river systems. They generate electricity on a scale that is hard to comprehend. Quebec alone produces 99% of its energy from renewables. It is the fourth largest producer of hydropower in the world. But here is the catch. They produce way more than they need. In the winter when it's freezing in Montreal, they use a lot. But in the summer or during mild springs, they have a massive surplus. So for decades, they built giant transmission lines literally called the interconnections that run south like arteries into the heart of the American economy. There is a line that runs under Lake Champlain directly into New York City. There are lines that feed Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. This system is called the Northeast Power Coordinating Council. It's a shared grid. Over the last 20 years, the United States made a strategic choice. We shut down our dirty coal plants in New England. We shut down the Indian Point nuclear reactor just outside New York City. We blocked the construction of new natural gas pipelines because of environmental protests. So how did we keep the lights on? We bought from Canada. We became addicted to that cheap, clean, reliable Canadian power. New York City gets nearly 20% of its daily electricity from the north. Vermont gets huge chunks of its baseload power from Hydro-Québec. It was the perfect setup. We get the clean energy credits. Canada gets the cash. But addiction has a downside. If your dealer decides to raise the price, you don't have a choice. You can't just switch to another provider. Building a new power plant takes 10 years. Building a new gas pipeline takes 5 years. Mark Carney knows this timeline. He knows that if he cuts the flow today, the United States cannot fix the problem until roughly 2035. That is the leverage. When Trump threatened the tariffs, he was threatening the one thing he didn't control. And here is the genius of the variable pricing mechanism Carney just installed. The new Canadian policy says exports to the US are subject to a stability surcharge. This means that every time Trump tweets a threat, the algorithm perceives instability and the price goes up automatically. Carney literally automated the punishment. He doesn't even have to give the order anymore. If Trump escalates, the price rises. If Trump calms down, the price stabilizes. He put a shock collar on the American economy, and he handed the remote control to the market. Let's take you inside the room where it happened. Sources tell us that at 9:15 a.m., 15 minutes after the price spike hit, the Oval Office was in total chaos. Donald Trump was on the phone screaming at the Secretary of Energy. She was trying to explain to him that this isn't technically illegal. Canada isn't blocking anything. They are just charging more. Trump doesn't care about technicalities. He kept yelling, "Sue them, sanction them, send the Navy." The lawyers in the room tried to explain the problem. They can't attack Canada militarily. That's insane. They can't sue them. No jurisdiction. They can't boycott them. We need the power. Now, for the first time in his presidency, Donald Trump is in a room with no exit door. Now, cut to Ottawa. The contrast could not be starker. While Washington is screaming, Ottawa is silent. Mark Carney hasn't tweeted. He hasn't held a rally. At 11 WOW AM, he held a brief technical briefing. No flags, no fanfare, just him, a podium, and a chart. He looked like a university professor teaching a class on macroeconomics. He said, "The government of Canada has a responsibility to its taxpayers to ensure we are receiving fair value for our natural resources. Given the hostile trade environment initiated by the United States, we have adjusted our risk premiums." Reporters tried to bait him. "Is this revenge for the Trump tariffs?" one asked. Carney adjusted his glasses. He didn't smile. "This is not revenge," he said. "This is a market correction. Uncertainty costs money. President Trump created the uncertainty. Therefore, he created the cost. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. He was using capitalist logic, the very logic Republicans claim to love, to strangle the Republican administration. Carney's approval ratings in Canada are skyrocketing. For years, Canadians have felt bullied by US trade policies, softwood lumber tariffs, dairy disputes, aluminum taxes. Finally, they have a leader who isn't just complaining, he's punching back. And he's doing it with a level of sophistication that makes the Trump team look like amateurs. Carney has also been working the phones, but not with Trump. We have reports that Carney has been speaking directly with the governors of the Northeast states. He is bypassing the president entirely. He is effectively saying to the governors, "Look, I don't want to hurt your people. This is Trump's fault. If you can get him to back down on the tariffs, I'll lower the power prices." He is fracturing the United States. He is turning the states against the federal government. It is a divide-and-conquer strategy executed by a Canadian. Let's leave the politicians for a moment. Let's talk about what this looks like for you, because spot price of electricity sounds abstract. But here is what it looks like on the ground. The factory owner in Ohio, meet Jim. He runs a mid-sized auto parts plant. He operates on thin margins. His electricity bill is usually $15,000 a month. Under the new pricing surge, his estimated bill for next month is $65,000. He can't pay that. He has two choices: raise prices on his parts, which fuels inflation, or shut down the line and lay off his 200 workers. He is currently drafting the layoff notices. The hospital administrator in Boston. Hospitals have backup generators. Yes, but they run on diesel. They only last for 48 hours. Right now, hospitals across Massachusetts are cancelling elective surgeries. They are turning down the thermostats. They are in disaster mode. Why? Because the grid is unstable. If the voltage drops too low, the MRI machines break. The ventilators glitch. This isn't just money. This is lives. The crypto miner in upstate New York. New York has a lot of Bitcoin mining operations because of the old hydro power. As of 9 a.m. this morning, every single one of them shut down. The cost of electricity is now higher than the value of the Bitcoin they can mine. An entire industry vanished in 1 second. The commuter. If you take the electric train from Connecticut to New York, guess what? The trains are delayed. The rail lines are reducing speed to save power. The entire economic velocity of the Northeast Corridor has slowed to a crawl. And the worst part, the bill hasn't even arrived yet. Your local utility company, Con Edison, National Grid, Eversource, they are paying these high prices right now, but they will pass them on to you next month. Analysts are predicting that the average household electric bill in the Northeast could rise by $300 to $500 next month if this standoff continues. That wipes out the tax cuts Trump promised. That wipes out wage gains. Carney has effectively levied a tax on every American family, and he didn't need Congress to pass it. The world is watching this, and what they are seeing is terrifying for American power. For 80 years, the US has been the indispensable nation, the superpower. But what happens when a superpower can't even keep its own lights on? In Beijing, they are taking notes. China has been trying to tell the world that the US is a declining empire. Today, the Chinese state media is running headlines: America in the dark, the failure of Western infrastructure. They are using this to sell their own energy systems to Africa and South America. Don't rely on the Americans, they say. They are unstable. They pick fights with their neighbors and lose their power supply. In Europe, the leaders are terrified. If the US can't handle a trade dispute with Canada, the friendliest country on earth, how can they handle Russia? How can they handle Iran? The US dollar took a hit this morning. Why? Because currency traders hate instability. If the US economy is going to be choked by energy shortages, the dollar is less valuable. Mark Carney hasn't just raised prices. He has exposed a strategic weakness in the armor of the United States. He showed the world that America is not energy independent. It is energy interdependent. And by trying to break that interdependence, Trump has accidentally revealed that the emperor has no clothes and no electricity. So how does this end? We are in the danger zone. Now there are 3 ways this plays out over the next 48 hours. Scenario 1, the capitulation. This is what Wall Street is praying for. Trump realizes he is losing. The governors scream loud enough. The donors threaten to pull their money. Trump goes on TV, declares that he has reached a beautiful understanding with Canada, and quietly drops the tariff threats. Carney immediately lowers the prices. The crisis ends. Trump claims victory, but everyone knows he blinked. Scenario 2. The escalation. Trump's ego won't let him fold. He decides to punish Canada. He closes the physical border. Trucks stop moving. Food rots. He tries to freeze Canadian assets in US banks. In response, Canada cuts the power completely. Not just a price hike, a blackout. Carney calls Europe and says, "We need new alliances." The US enters a deep recession. Inflation hits 10%. It's the 1970s oil crisis all over again, but worse. Scenario 3. The regime change. Not a coup, but a political revolt. The Republican Party turns on Trump. The Senate passes a veto-proof resolution, forcing the president to normalize trade with Canada. Carney wins by forcing the US political system to eat its own leader. Right now, looking at the furious tweets coming out of the White House, Scenario 2 looks terrifyingly possible. This is not a drill. This is not a theoretical exercise. Tonight, when you go home, flip the light switch. When it turns on, don't take it for granted. Realize that that light is shining because of a complex web of trust, treaties and trade that keeps this continent running. Donald Trump tried to tear that web apart to score political points. Mark Carney just showed him that the web is stronger than the man. The question you have to ask yourself is this: do you want a president who fights with the world and leaves you in the dark? Or do you want a world where agreements matter? Carney isn't the villain of this story. He's the wake-up call. The US grid is flickering, the price is climbing, and somewhere in Quebec, a turbine is spinning, waiting for America to come to its senses. If you want to know if your state is next on the list for blackouts, check the pinned comment below. I've linked the map of the grid dependencies. Don't forget to subscribe, because if the power goes out, we'll be the only ones telling you why. Stay safe and keep some candles.